I am so
Why
frustrated.
can no one help me?
Waiting
This
is
is
the
a nightmare.
worst. I think it's
Healthcare is broken.
At Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, we get it.
Really?
Really. That's why we're making healthcare better for all. Starting with you. Yes, you, Daryl. We're making plans easier to navigate by putting your benefits, prescriptions, and details all in one place. Convinced?
No. But it's a start.
We'll take it. Blue Cross North Carolina. Making healthcare better for all. Starting with you.
The Triangle region is constantly growing, evolving, and facing challenges, creating a plethora of news to report for the TBJ newsroom. Let us do the hard work for you. I am Sugata Mukherjee, President and Publisher of the Triangle Business Journal. Our newsroom will connect the dots for you from headline-making news and explain why these selected topics may open new opportunities for businesses and workers alike. We know what's important in your work life as we go deeper into these biggest stories from the Triangle region in the past month. This is Bottom Line Triangle. Welcome to our first episode of the Bottom Line Triangle. Today we'll be talking to you about a couple of projects that have the potential of transforming the region. One that's full steam ahead and the other that keeps getting kicked down the road. With us today are TBJ senior reporter Lauren Onosorge, reporter Zach Ezone, and managing editor Dane Huffman. So, Lauren, let's start off with, just walk us through what Apple had announced back in 2021 and the latest development relating to its new campus in RTP.
So the latest development is pretty easy to talk about because there's not really anything happening in Research Triangle Park outside of some paperwork a few years ago. But back in 2021, Apple made huge headlines for TBJ when it announced plans to invest $1 billion over 10 years. I think more than $550 million was going to go toward construction in Research Triangle Park. But the kicker was 3,000 jobs paying an average of $187,000 a year. High-paying jobs. So the good news first. Apple has been creating jobs. People with the state tell me it's about 800 right now. They're creating those jobs in Cary, however, at the MetLife campus. Their interim space.
About it because it's not in the campus, right?
Right, but not Research Triangle Park. Now, there have been permits filed. There's been several things that we've been able to read about over the years from public records. But last year, Apple made it official that they're hitting pause on the project. So what's not clear is what that pause really means. When they said it last year, they were supposed to extend the project by 4 years and they were in negotiations with the state. It's not really clear where that stands. People close to the situation have recently told me that there have been continued conversations between Apple and state officials, and the state has no reason to believe that anything has changed long term. But there's a lot of impatience, right? Because when you talk about a story this big.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I do know that there has been some recent, just my sort of relationship with the business community and talking to some people, that chatter has in fact increased a little bit about Apple doing something in RTP just in recent weeks. And I think it sort of triggered, what CEO Tim Cook told Trump about Apple investing some $5 billion or $10 billion, but never sort of made that relation that it's going to go to RTP.
A couple of those announcements. Trump has made a couple of those announcements alongside Tim Cook. There's a lot of rumor that this is happening around tariffs, around that situation. Apple is trying to sort of play to the new administration. There is investment happening in North Carolina. It's just not happening here. So there's a town of Maiden in Catawba County where Apple has been extremely active in building data centers and investing into these next generation data center complexes. So Apple is creating jobs in Western North Carolina, and it's been transformative. Apple's their top taxpayer. They're able to build things like a new community center without raising taxes.
Right. So before I go to Zach, I know Zach, you have a couple of questions. I would like to go to Dane. And Dane, you and I have been in news for a long time. I am not sure this concept of tech campus works anymore.
I think that's a great point, because when this happened in 2021, we're still coming out of the pandemic. Everybody assumes people are going back to downtowns, back to Class A offices. That's kind of the model. That sort of tech campus model was obviously prevalent, right? And so when you saw it, you're like, this is perfect for RTP. This is exactly what they drew up in 1955 or whatever, back in those days, right? Yeah, it's exactly what it wanted to be. And the fact that the triangle could attract an Apple, even though Tim Cook and Jeff Williams both have ties here, right? Went to Duke, went to NC State. For them to say we're going to make a major investment in this area was really significant. And that's why I think like Lauren's reporting has been so interesting, just staying on top of this, right? Like, so what happens next? And what does that campus or that facility actually look like? Is it likely they're going to put something there? Most likely. Yeah. This is a long-term play. We all know companies like this think in terms of decades, not days, right? But still, I think that whole campus, a 3,000 person campus of people driving somewhere 5 days a week, those days may be gone.
Yeah, Lauren, I was wondering, what did they say initially in 2021 when this was announced about the type of jobs they were bringing here? Like, who were they hiring? What was the focus of this campus when they announced it?
So it's research.
Okay.
They were really trying to develop new technologies here. They cited our engineering talent, our universities. That's the reason, apparently, that they picked North Carolina, and it was a long time coming, right? Several years ago, we thought we were going to win a project that went to Austin, Texas, and they cited many of the same things, right? They have great university systems, great talent, so it was a pretty head-to-head match. And we've been following some real estate purchases for a while. There was a subsidiary that was sort of a holding company that was linked to Apple that we'd been following, and so they had the land for a while, which is why we really thought that Austin project would be an RTP project. But it ended up being in the Triangle. And it's interesting what you're talking about with tech campuses, because today we pulled some numbers from EDP&C, which is the chief recruitment engine for jobs in North Carolina, the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. And there are more than 200 companies that are looking to potentially relocate, expand in North Carolina. But for the first month in several months, none of the new projects added last month were in research and development or office projects. So it's sort of redefining what one of these really successful wins could be, right? Because we're seeing a lot of the life sciences projects, not necessarily the apples of 20.
And what's interesting about and the reason I was curious about that, and you talking about the focus is on research, and even just mentioned it there. Even the life sciences projects, they're not research projects. It's all been manufacturing. We're becoming and have become this big manufacturing hub, but none of these, even other types of manufacturing, right? Like you look at VinFast, that's car manufacturing. We'll see where that goes someday maybe. But all of these projects that we're getting, they're not like the research type or corporate headquarters. It's all manufacturing. So it'll be really interesting to see if Apple comes along and
I'm not even sure RTP's statute even allows a certain type of work being done inside the campus. They have been super flexible in order to get the economic development announcement, but they probably have to change some of sort of the guidelines that sort of what the charter was in the early days. I was just looking at Apple stock, that what it has done. I mean, it really hasn't changed. Year to date is a negative 4.37%. It's probably going to be around 5%. I still think that's my call. I have no reason. I have no source. I am just calling it that something. I'm agreeing with Dane on this, that I think something will happen. I think they will announce something, which will be substantial, simply because already people have sort of invested thinking Apple is going to be there and the real estate around the area. Yeah. So, I mean, there will be some development. There is going to be a push for that. As far as economic development announcement, all of us have been in this business long enough also to know we are the first one to report when somebody says, I'm going to bring 1,000 jobs. What they don't realize is 6 years later, we will also report that project never came. And people need to sort of understand that, it's not always rah-rah stuff that is going on. We do have some challenges that we need to. And any final thoughts from you guys?
I just want to follow up on that, because I think that's a really good point. Sometimes, like Lauren wrote about the Anderle project that goes to Columbus, Ohio, right? And as dominant as the Triangle has been, as effective as we've been at getting a lot of things, there's some that we've missed on. Anduril is going to go public at some point. They're a major defense contractor. They're going to be a big company, hire lots of people. This is the type of thing that you want, right? You want the Apples, the Andurils, that sort of thing. So we got on the map with that Amazon chase. I mean, the fact that we were second, third, I think it was second, right there, that sent a signal to a lot of companies, but it's also a good chance to sit back and say, okay, Apple will probably come, but is there anything that we have missed on? Are there any punch checklist items that we need to make sure in the triangle that when we get to that final call with the Andurils and stuff like that in the future, that we make sure we got that? Because those things, those are transformative, and you don't get many Andurils, you don't get many Apples, you don't get many Microsofts. So when you're in the hunt, you want to make sure you put your best foot forward.
Totally agree. Well, let's take a short break, and we'll be back talking about the North Carolina Children's Hospital.
I am so
Why
frustrated.
can no one help me?
Waiting is the worst. I think it's healthcare is broken.
At Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, we get it.
Really?
Really. That's why we're making healthcare better for all. Starting with you. Yes, you, Daryl. We're making plans easier to navigate by putting your benefits, prescriptions, and details all in one place. Convinced?
No. But it's a start.
We'll take it. Blue Cross North Carolina. Making healthcare better for all. Starting with you.
Another huge project in the triangle. The one with multiple stakeholders and perhaps far definitive timeline than Apple.
Sure.
So, North Carolina Children's Hospital. So, question for Zach. One of the biggest economic development stories of the decade so far. No doubt, $2 billion plus investment pledge, right? Jointly run by UNC and Duke, with material support from the state of North Carolina. When will construction start, and when is it expected to be completed and operational?
Yeah, so first, maybe outline a few details. So they're looking to build a campus, right? So there are multiple facilities. Initial plans call for a 500-bed pediatric hospital, and then a 70-bed behavioral health hospital. So those are sort of the two main health facilities, and then a medical office building, an administrative office building. So that's sort of the initial plans that they're working on. As far as beginning construction, they're looking at early 2027. That's sort of the vague timeline we have right now, and obviously have some work to do before we get into that point. And then it's supposed to be operational and complete construction sometime in early 2030s. So not really a specific year yet. But the hospital projects, like any other large development, the timelines can fluctuate and can face delays. So yeah, kind of a long timeline.
Man, can you imagine the amount of business that will be available for contractors, general contractors?
Yeah.
I mean,
they're going through that whole, or at least began in July, going through the whole RFQ, RFP process, trying to find those contractors, find those vendors. So that'll be interesting. We should learn, I would assume, relatively, sometime in the next few months.
Maybe they need
who's working on those projects.
Maybe TBJ needs to get into
maybe
contract consulting business.
Yeah. And to follow up on the timeline really quick, there's also an interesting funding component to it, right? So this all started initially with the General Assembly allocating about $320 million. It was a 2023 budget to just UNC at the time. The bill language was just UNC at that time. So they have that money, right? And now, they're obviously hoping for more state funds. And now with a site picked out, they're obviously ramping up the fundraising efforts. But they'll need a certain dollar amount. It's not really clear what, but they'll need a certain dollar amount to begin construction, right? Like they probably won't have all $3 billion, whatever it ends up being. But and from what I understand, they're still sort of working out exactly what that dollar amount will be. But they'll need some more funding before they begin construction.
From the legislature?
Both, all of the above.
Yeah.
Legislature, fundraising,
Yeah.
Yep.
So a $3 billion project, whether it's 2 or 3,
they're about.
It certainly is probably going to go up. I think we have already run stories about how Apex will transform, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be a transformation for the town of Apex. Why? Question is why? Because let's assume it's because of the development and all that stuff that is going to go around.
Sure.
But to me, it seems like it's also going to increase prices, which everybody has been complaining about in Wake County.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a little backstory, but the land that they're building this on is technically owned by the pension fund, right? It's like the state pension fund, a division of the state treasurer's office, essentially formed a partnership back in, late 2022 with a developer in New York, RXR. And together they acquired 1,000 plus acres right down there in Apex, right? What we know is the Viridia development now. And when I spoke with the state treasurer a few months ago about this after the land sale to the hospital, he acknowledged that they maybe could have gotten more money for the land from another developer. They didn't have another developer lined up or anything, but basically maybe they sold a bit of a lower price because they knew that the land around the hospital would only increase because of the hospital, right? So like maybe we can sell this land for a little bit less. There'll be a hospital, and then the hospital will make all the surrounding land the value increase. So yeah, it's definitely going to happen. What that actually looks like, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, the value of that land is definitely a lot more than if it would have been 200 acres of warehouses or something to that effect.
And that's a hot region when it comes to transportation too, right? Complete 540, the project that we're all waiting to be complete.
Yeah, fingers crossed, right?
Yeah. When will that be complete?
Off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure.
While I'm still alive?
Let's hope so.
Right after Apple.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, phase 2 of the project will be complete. It's under construction right now. So,
Dane, this is, truly speaking, I think you and I have talked about it in the newsroom a little bit about it. It is remarkable for UNC and Duke to come together. They don't come together for anything.
I think it's astounding. I really do. Of all the things that Zach has written, this was one of the ones that just jumped off the page to me. And one of his original stories, he mentioned how they're going to be partnering together. And then it was just a great story that he got an anecdote about how the head of UNC Health and the head of Duke Health get in a car and drive to Apex to walk around and look at a piece of land to put a children's hospital. And I just found that astounding. As somebody who went to UNC as undergrad and Duke for graduate school, these schools really hate each other, right? There's nothing,
exactly.
No love lost between the two. If you walk down Franklin Street, there are lots of t-shirts out there that misspell Duke pretty regularly. And and the Duke people feel the same way. Mm-hmm. So the fact that these two entities were going to work together was a result of really two things, I think. The two things are telling here. Number one is I think they have a genuine concern about children's health in North Carolina. And I think they genuinely want to have facilities here that are first rate, that will attract companies that will care for children. These are children who are incredibly sick, who have parents who are desperate. We know about the Flight of Hope and the great work that they do. These are children who really need the best doctors that we have. And to have Duke and Carolina doctors on the same hall trying to deal with pediatrics who are really struggling, this is a fantastic thing. Yeah. It really is. It's transformative. But I think the other thing it tells you is that these children's hospitals spit out a tremendous amount of money. They attract money, they attract investment, they attract corporate dollars, they attract state dollars. And that's, I think, what Zach has done so well at, is this is really a lot of money at stake here. And that matters to health systems that are trying to, be profitable in this day and age.
Yeah, sorry, if I could just add to that really quick. Yeah, you're totally right, Dane. And when I spoke with folks over at UNC and Duke, and just to be clear, the new sort of entity that's leading the hospital is NC Children's, right? That's the new nonprofit they formed. But obviously that's a joint effort between the two. When I spoke with folks over there, they basically said that together they think they can open a hospital that's like one of the top 5 in the country. Rather than if they try to do it separately, maybe they'd be in the top 20, top 15 or something. But together, they think right out the gate, they can compete with Boston, Philadelphia, Cincinnati. So you're totally right that by coming together, they can assumedly do a lot more. And then one person I spoke with, an executive actually at a children's hospital outside of North Carolina, and it gets to what you said about, financial element, is we'll probably be able to operate this a bit more efficiently by able to bring services together, eliminate some redundancies, and it might be a bit more operationally, efficient compared to operating children's hospitals separately.
So we only have time for maybe a couple more questions. It is sort of interesting to me, just in a broader sense. You sort of make a commitment to essentially a healthcare project. In this case, of course, it's a hospital. But on one hand, I can see the pediatric care being of enormous importance to folks that are coming in to it. It is a big economic development tool to tell them that UNC Duke is running a children's hospital which just opened in 2030 or whatever it may be. On the other hand, it makes me wonder as to, what does the future of American population looks like, right? The childbirths are like at an all-time low, and population is aging. So shouldn't we also think about sort of a hospital that caters to only baby boomers too? I'm just throwing it out there. Sure. I'm just saying that the aging of the state will demand more services for that segment of the population.
Well, I think they're doing both, right? Like, so we're talking about this children's hospital, but we just did a story, I can't remember, a few weeks ago now. So we have the state medical facilities plan that comes out each year, right? The state basically allocates a certain number of hospital beds that each county, each region of the state needs. They identified a need of more than 250 hospital beds in Wake County this year, right? And those are a lot of maybe the population we're talking about. And we had a lot of proposals, right? Like Wake Med wants all 267 beds. Duke wants a good chunk of them. Yeah, it's happening. I think they're doing both, right? Like this is one project to address maybe a specific need, but these health systems are all, I think, trying to grapple with what you're talking about. Not just population aging, but also population growth, right? Like there's a demand for services there, and I think they're trying to address it, or seemingly so.
I mean, this is really a fascinating story that I'm sure you're going to write several stories around it. What interests me, of course, is when you have development of this size, there's going to be a lot of local businesses, state businesses that are going to benefit, which will really help the local economy. That's what excites sort of me, because we are we look from a different lens, right? Into what the local economy is doing, what the state economy is doing. So I'm sure you and your team is going to be following this pretty darn closely. So we'll take a short break, and then we will be back with a special guest.
The Triangle Business Journal is the Triangle's go-to source for local business news, covering the 16 counties in the greater Raleigh-Durham region. For more, go to bizjournals.com/triangle, where you can also learn more about partnerships and sponsorships. And to make sure you don't miss breaking business news as it happens, sign up for our newsletters and alerts at bizjournals.com/triangle/newsletters.
So I'd like to introduce our special guest today, our first special guest, of course, Steve Jones, CEO of Raleigh-based Dogwood Bank, who struck a $476 million deal with TowneBank, headquartered in Virginia. Steve, back in 2019, I believe, when you formed Dogwood, were you already thinking ahead that someday Dogwood will be an attractive target for an acquisition?
I did, and when we Sugata, number one, thanks for having me. Of
course,
Lauren, always good to be here with you. When we started Dogwood, there was just not a lot of community banks based in North Carolina, given all the recent consolidation through 16 through 18. I figured we'd be building something with some scarcity value, and it turned out to be right. I think there are, 25 state-chartered North Carolina banks, now soon to be 24. So there was just a void in that market that we felt that small businesses in our communities, specifically Raleigh, where we're headquartered, needed what we come to market with from a community bank perspective.
So according to the North Carolina Commissioner of Banks today, that's 33, about to be 32 state chartered.
I've seen different,
banks.
and I'm excluding some of the larger banks.
Right.
I'm just talking more specifically just community banks.
Yeah, and I think there were 88 20 years ago, so
Yes.
sort of a shrinking number.
It is.
And so a few years ago, Bob Aston told me that he extended a job offer. Bob Aston, as we know, is the CEO of TowneBank, and he was pushing for you to join Town before you started Dogwood. Talk through that decision.
Well, and it was interesting because he called me after I left First National Bank, FNB, and I went to Virginia, Suffolk to visit with him, and visited for like 4 or 5 hours, and I left. He called me back up and said, I really would like for you to come run North Carolina for us. They just bought Paragon Bank. And so I was going back and forth. Do I, do the risky move and start a new bank, or do I take this for sure bet and, go with TowneBank, who I've respected, Bob and his team, over the years? And so I called him, and it was a hard conversation. I was like, Bob, I think I'm going to start a new bank. He says, no, don't do that. That's too risky in this environment. And then we went ahead and did it, and here we are back together again.
And yet he called you a few years later and said, let's merge.
Yeah, well, we've been talking a little bit over the years, and it's funny. I went and had lunch at his lake house in late November. Nothing really about any kind of deal or anything, but we chatted and had a great conversation. He learned a lot more about Dogwood, and I've learned what TowneBank was up to. And then in June we connected in Suffolk and started really getting into the weeds to see if this would really work for Town and for Dogwood.
Yeah, and Town has been in the Raleigh market for a while.
Paragon, they bought Paragon
17
a few years ago.
2017, 2017.
And it's not just TowneBank. There's been so much consolidation, as we were talking about, from 88 to 33. There's F&B, obviously, that entered here.
And he worked at F&B.
Trusted
right?
Steve
F&B.
did.
Yeah.
You ran.
Well, we had Yadkin, then sold to F&B in early 2016. And then, to Lauren's point, then, South State bought Park Sterling out of Charlotte. Pinnacle bought Bank of North Carolina.
Trust Atlantic.
So why do community banks, and this is probably a question for both of you, why, since Lauren, you cover banking, and Steve, you have been a banking executive, why do community banks really have a hard time staying independent? Is the purpose to merge at some point after it hits 2 billion, 3 billion, and
I do think there's some, once you get over 2.5 billion, I think you need to go to like 6 or 7 billion, just from the economies of scale, new technology and regulation come into play. So it makes a little bit of sense to do it that way. But, you look at the great cases of Larry Barber at North State, and, he's just had a steadfast commitment to, and his shareholder base is structured such that, it makes sense for them to stay independent.
Fiercely independent, I think Larry Barber would say. And he's not alone. There are several banks, when I ask, are you for sale? They say, absolutely not. Just don't say it that way to my shareholders.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, that's my point is, if private equity in bigger, I'm not talking about banks, I'm just talking about in a global sense of what the capital markets are. If private equity just went into a bank, which is, or a company that is extremely close, where, the owners or the CEO, the chairman will never sell, why would private equity even go in when they have no exit strategy? They're not going to go put $2 trillion not knowing that they're not going to be able to go.
And Dogwood was kind of structured that way with T. Rowe Price, FJ Capital, Patriot Financial, that put big dollars in, and to be able to raise big dollars, they want a return on their money.
And what you learned when you were starting Dogwood is it's extremely difficult to start a bank from scratch.
Yes.
Larry Barber, we were just talking about $15 million to start North State Bank. Today, Peter Gwaltney, who's the CEO of North Carolina Bankers Association, recently told me it would take a minimum of $30 million to start a bank today. Probably $50 million.
It's probably 50.
It's probably, I'd say it's 50. I mean, then, the legal lending limit would be like, $5 million loan. Well, it takes a lot of those to stack up to reach profitability.
Yeah.
And then, that's a good point. I do want to say that, because we did start the de novo route, and we raised $30 million local from friends and family, and then went to New York. I'll never forget that weekend we went through, and we had 4 days of road shows, 24 different meetings with people that we had made a lot of money from when we sold Yadkin to F&B.
Yeah.
And we got back, my investment banker called me on that Monday, and he says, you were 0 for 24. They like you, they love the markets, but the expense ahead of revenue for a de novo, we don't like the investment thesis, to your point earlier. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, we don't have that much time left, about the culture. I've sort of heard TowneBank has a very distinct culture. Well, of course, you haven't really come on board yet. The deal was just announced. Can you tell me how you see the Dogwood culture fit with the TowneBank culture?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've told some of the analysts that I've been on calls with them on about that. I think that is the number one key to this deal. I think culturally they align very well with us. You know, they're very people-oriented and very customer-oriented. In Dogwood, our core values are love and respect that goes to our employees, to our customers, that flows into how we go to market. So I think our cultures, and going through our conversations during due diligence and talking about employees and markets and how we want to do things, we didn't have one disagreement in terms of what they wanted to do or what I wanted to do. It all made sense.
Well, true, but there will be disagreement.
Well, yeah, I'm sure, I'm for sure. But at least in the initial days, the way they treat their employees, it's pretty amazing. And I feel like our employees who are going to come over as part of the deal will be treated just like they have been at Dogwood.
I know you have told us in our previous reporting that you still don't know as to whether, I believe you have at least 2 or 3 different big facilities in the Raleigh area. Have you decided as to what will be the local headquarters?
We haven't decided that yet. Yeah, they were supposed to be here this morning, and I could have told you something, but they got punched to next Wednesday, so that's still a TBD. But I think over at their Glenwood office they're full, and they got their North Raleigh office, which is full. So, we have some capacity where we are full, but post the close will be obviously some people that will be duplicate roles that we might not need. So I think there's going to be some opportunities to figure out how to do that and maybe keep all locations.
And you had said that you wanted a downtown location, that signage downtown, and I know that original headquarters deal didn't exactly work out. Could that be something that's being talked about?
Not at this point, it hasn't. I need to, like I said, get with Bob and their facilities folks to figure out what they want to do, and so I wouldn't be opposed to it, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, advertising, that's for sure.
Yeah, no question.
So when we're talking about mergers and acquisition and more could be on the way, what advice do you have for other executives, other bank CEOs looking at this market right now in 2025?
Well, I will tell you, this is a very hot market that everybody wants to be in, right? And so the problem with the North Carolina market, to be honest with you, Lauren, is there's only, to your point earlier, there's only so many banks if somebody wants to come into this market to buy. So I would say that valuations are starting to go up at these regional banks. The regulatory process to get a deal approved has really amped up under the new administration. For example, TowneBank got approval for their Old Point deal in less than 60 days.
That's amazing.
And you remember back, when we did Community First back in last August, it was a 4.5 month process. And then even back into 17, 16, it was a year, if not longer. So I think the regulatory environment we're in nationwide will speed up the level of M&A and banking.
How about in general in M&A? What are you hearing from clients, business owners?
Well, I think there's always a certain level of M&A just given succession planning. And as a lot of these CEOs and owners of these businesses continue to age up and they might not have a family member so we're seeing quite a bit of that in the market today.
We're still hearing from business owners that there's a lot of uncertainty. It's not that they won't make the deal, won't make the purchase. It's more that they want to have something concrete to tell their board, to tell their investors. What are you hearing? Are you hearing green shoots?
I'm not really hearing a lot on that front.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. Steve, we will definitely have you back once you are a few months into your new job. Congratulations.
Thank you, Sugata.
With that, that's all for today. We hope you have enjoyed our program, and we look forward to bringing you our next episode in October. Thank you for listening to Bottom Line Triangle. Find more information on all these stories at bizjournals.com/triangle. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe and share. Episodes are released monthly on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.